services are canceled primarily because everybody's trying to preserve cash flow. How do you deal with that one? That's a huge piece.
It's a huge, huge, huge one. And again, lean in, right? I'm asking you these questions about why you're choosing to contain your spend with me, because I'm also concerned about my ability to pay my people, to keep my lights on. You and I are in the exact same situation. I've been passionate about sales and serving people for the majority of my career, starting in learning and education management, and all in software technologies and enterprise sales level. And I've tried to filter the enterprise speak that we love so much and filter it down into more common terms for people who have smaller businesses and people who have an entrepreneurship affection for entrepreneurship, and really just helping them understand that the principles of sales, whether it be a $10 million deal or a $1 deal, are relatively the same. It's just a matter of how you speak with the people that you're in your audience. And so I love talking about this. I could do it all day long. Of course, I got to make a living. So that's what I do. I go out and I talk to other people about the solutions that I'm offering to the problems that they have in their businesses, because everything that we're going through right now is being impacted. People are still, everyone's afraid manufacturing is going to shut down. So there's a whole bunch of variables that are in play now that are going to come into a business person's head and ultimately stand them still. And that's the worst thing we could all be doing right now, is other than staying in your home, but being very, very active while quarantining yourself to make sure that we don't perpetuate this virus. So side hustling the coronavirus is the topic of the day. And I put some stuff together just to kind of level set where I think we are, and ultimately just start to kind of give some perspective on what you could be doing and how to really start changing up your thinking about how to approach anyone when it comes to business or selling or positioning your stuff in this environment, et cetera. So first and foremost, we know who the culprit is. It's this virus that's out there, and it's affecting all of us. In so many different ways. I mean, mentally, it's affecting us. It's affecting our ability to move and feel like we have freedoms. It's affecting our care and our attention to our families, right? So it's a culprit, but I think that what we're starting to really realize now that we're sort of a couple of months into this in the US, just being quarantined the way that we are, is that there's a lot of human out there, and humans are great. And I think we're really starting to kind of see that now as people really level up their amount of care that they provide to people and making sure that we're okay. And even like this, I told Andrew, I said, I don't know what we're going to get out of this, but I know that I'm going to get an opportunity to connect with other people live. And right now, that is so amazingly important. And if you're not being purposeful and connecting with other people right now, you're doing your friends and your family and your community an injustice. So you should really start to change that thought process right away. Don't let the culprit overtake us, right? And what's interesting about this culprit is that it's causing a lot of mixed reactions. And there's a good percentage of my brain that is that's dedicated to conspiracies, and things like this really kind of really kind of fuel it, because we're all suffering from this, but there's really this really mixed reaction. There's some believe that it's not as bad as it is. Some believe that's really bad. Some people don't even believe it's actually happening. And but it is real, and it's just interesting to watch both sides. And this always gives me good comfort, because it means that no one really has the true answer. So you have to continue to be curious about what you're learning and not take everything that you get as fact unless you get it from a reliable source, right? So when you look at the way that the world is reacting to it, be careful about getting your advice from your friends, best friend, right? Like that's just not the right way to do it. Make sure you have reputable resources, and again, you know, just know that it's occurring. So this is the big thing, right? Everyone's freaking out. The rent, I got to pay my rent. I got to pay my bills. I have to keep working. I have to keep earning an income. My business is shutting down production, right? Like everyone is like, holy Toledo, this is crazy. We've never been anywhere through something like this before. And that's completely untrue. We've seen major pullbacks and depressions in the history in the United States and globally. This is, no one's can get away from this because once one economy comes down, another one just starts to come with it. And so what I did was I just did a quick search and found, just some simple search terms, give me what the recessions have looked like. And this was a great chart, really shows the month of peak and the low, and then how many months the recession actually was in place. And you can see some really strong percents of decline. And that's what's going to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's going to be a pullback here. But I don't think the pullback's going to really be, as bad as it's going to. And my primary belief behind that is that I think the more and more you go through something, the more and more you become practiced, and the better you get through it, right? It's just building muscle. And our country, I think, and the world has gotten used to these levels of pullbacks, and they do things to kind of keep things moving. And I'll show you a later chart about how we move after a pullback. And I think you'll find it really, really interesting. So, okay, so I'm just looking at those chats. I just want to make sure, but I think Monica, you got those. So what does this all mean for what we're up to right now? Doom and gloom, right? I'm looking at today as not doom and gloom. It's just different. It's just something that we're not accustomed to. We've probably all taken in this growth period that we've been in, have been able to establish companies and establish small businesses and start offering services in our community. And now that things are sort of shutting down, you could easily take a doom and gloom approach when looking at what you're doing in your business. And you need to be on the opposite side of this. You need to be not looking at it as doom and gloom, but really more as opportunistic, right? And I just pulled this off the web, but I did stick in the red, fat, bolded gently in there because there are some words in here that would make you feel like being opportunistic in this time frame is evil. And if you approach it the wrong way, you will be doing evil things. You should not be thinking about opportunistic as an opportunity to take advantage of people's situations. What you should be looking at is, how do I think about the problems that are posed to me now in this environment and how those problems are affecting my business, and be creative and opportunistic about how you approach those, and then ultimately put those into the hands of the people that you still want to do business with. But you have to do that gently. People are very frail right now, and they have every right to be, right? They have every right to tell you, I'm not interested. And you need to be like, that is completely fine. And if you're talking to people strictly about sales and strictly about buying something from you, and you're not being empathetic right now, you're going to do yourself a major disservice. Once the pullback starts to correct and we get into recovery, people will look at you as an evil, opportunistic person who tried to take advantage of them while they were in a crisis. And your business will really be impacted from establishing that kind of tone with your market space. So be opportunistic, think, be creative. Don't be afraid to act without a general plan in place, right? We have been trained to put a plan in place, but today's environment requires you to keep your lights on. You're going to have to think outside of your general plan of operation and really see how the environment is changing it, and ultimately what you're going to have to do to adjust in order to keep your business flowing. And again, do this gently, very, very gently. Be very, very wary of people, and make sure that you're offering them kind and care before you start thinking about trying to solve their problem, right? And so there are definite steps. Now, Andrew asked me to break this out a little bit, but I didn't want to end up with a 30-page slide deck, right? So I'll just talk through these. There are definitely steps that you could be taking right now in your business, in your approaches. And the first one is don't panic. If you show up in panic, you're gonna stand that person up right away, and they're gonna go into panic, and everything you're telling them won't be heard at all. So don't panic. The more you make things feel like they haven't changed, the more inclined they're going to be open to listening to you. So while you're not panicking, take the opportunity to review what you've been doing, what you've been saying, and start to plan around what you're going to start doing differently, and then go out and execute it. The more you keep things normal, the better people are going to feel. And that'll make them feel like nothing has changed as well, which means that'll keep their keep the opportunity for you to sell a service or a product to them during that time. So this really means that you're thinking about expanding your business and not thinking about contracting it. And this is really hard to think about right now when people aren't in the mode of spending money. But as you can see in step 3, there's a boatload of money coming into the U.S. economy. No one knows where it's going, but it's coming. And that means that people are going to be given money in order to continue to spend, which is a mechanism and lever in keeping the economy flowing. So you have to pay attention to where your economies are putting money into to keep things working, and start following where that's going. And that could mean if there's $3 trillion in the US coming, I can imagine that a good majority of that is going to go into the healthcare streams. So what could I be doing in healthcare streams that allows me to offer a service or to augment a service that I currently provide in order to get into where that money is flowing to? Because people will be spending in those areas. So that's sort of how, and what I'm saying in step 3 when I say follow the money, is start to think about where the money and these injections are going, and start thinking about how you can get closer to that, because that's where the money's gonna be. And step 4 is really engage when others are settling in place. Right now, everyone's trying to figure this out. And a lot of people are going to be paused in their activities because they just don't know how to get through it. They're going to be waiting for their leadership. They're going to be waiting for more words. They're going to wait for more guidance, which means they're just going to stay in place until someone tells them that it's okay to go. And you can't do that. You have to get away from that. You have to think about taking advantage of this pullback, because really others aren't doing this. And if you feel like the world's going to correct itself in a couple of days, it's not. It could be a month, it could be 2, it could be the end of the summer, it could be the fall. Until we get better clarity, that doesn't mean that you sit still. You have to be taking activity. You have to be acting like things haven't changed. And you have to figure out where the money is so that you can then continue to expand your business. All right. So how do you go a little bit deeper on that? And I'm talking in 2 different, right? I work in large scale enterprise sales, and then I work with, young entrepreneurs that have like 2 customers and like $10 in revenue. Right. So I am trying to think broadly in some of this, and I'm also trying to think locally as well. So I'm going to offer ideas on both sides of the equation as methods that you could be thinking of in order to take advantage of what's going on. So first thing, you got to look locally, right? Understand what's going in your neighborhoods. Talk to the people around you. Hit them up on text message. Call your neighbors. What are they doing? What are they buying? What are they not buying? What do they wish they could be buying right now that they can't, right? Like start polling your own neighbors and your own community about what they're doing with their money, because that will then give you an opportunity to think about where you can inject yourself. So take a look at the work environment, right? Companies are remote like crazy right now. They have all these new initiatives. That's going to open up a whole bunch of holes in their offering. A lot of companies don't know how to manage a work from home force. So if you understand work from home principles and methodologies, you should be offering that as a service right now. So think about the work environment and how cultures are starting to change because of this, and figure out where the gaps are, which ultimately should produce you an opportunity to go talk to someone, right? Again, review and adjust your mission, goals, and vision, and even your metrics, right? You may have to throw metrics out right now because it's just chaotic right now. So take a look at how you've been serving your markets and make some adjustments, and then start to distribute that to your customers and even your own team members, so that they understand how you're starting to navigate through this environment with your business or with your service, right? And if you're not over peopling people right now, like, I just want to talk to you. I said this to one of my prospects the other day. I said, hey, I want to talk to you for nothing but just want to talk to you. I'm in my house all by myself and I'm lonely, right? Like, that's it. I need some human in my life, and that's it. So understand your teams, understand what they're good at, what they're not good at. They could have something that they are really good at that you're not, that they're not using, which could be, again, something that you could initiate within your business and then offer it, right? So all of this is just really developing the thermodynamics of your business or you as an individual. And if you can do this, then you're going to start setting yourself up to take advantage of the environment. So this one is a tricky one, right? And I said this to Andrew and he started laughing when he saw the slide. He's like, you're so right, right? Like, we are so accustomed to thinking that we have to target a very large community base in order to have a successful business, right? I call this the 1% of a million approach, because it's everywhere in entrepreneurship. There's like 10 million people in. If I only get 1% of it, I'll be, I'll have a great business. You have to kind of undo this a little bit. You need to think low scale. And the way that I put it is, you need to just figure out how to serve one person well right now. And when you serve that person well, it will lead to 2 people, 3, 4, and 5. And if you do this right, you could develop, again, an income, a stream in this environment that ultimately helps you downrange. So I sort of just kind of sat down. I started thinking about different ideas that we can be doing. So if you're a local provider and you're not in sort of large scale sales, then these are some of the ideas that I would be testing right now. I'd be reaching out to those people when I'm talking to them, to my neighbors, and just asking them, are you able to get out and pick up the things that you want, right? Or do you would you be okay with someone bringing you something if you needed it, right? And if they say yes to those, then you now have a delivery business, right? You're now a last mile provider. And I talked to a prospect and I asked them sort of what they were doing extra beyond sending people to work from home. Then, like, we still have a large complement of people coming in every day, and we've asked our cleaning services to go above and beyond. And so now they're down to cleaning the door handles on every office door every night, right? So it's like, think about where traditional cleaning, you can go beyond that and try to do something that's a little more unique and tackle areas that their current provider may not be doing. It could be an opportunity to do that as well. Online classes, forget about it all day long. If you've got a specialty, you should have that up and running, because parents who are at home, who are trying to figure out how to keep their kids occupied, will take that on. And I think crafting kits right now is going to be huge, because it's just giving them something to do. And if a parent can buy that at a low cost, they'll buy them in droves and give them to their kids and let their kids just hammer away while they're trying to get their Zoom meetings on with their work. So, and that goes into like I call it kid walking. They're all out of school in the US, and I've heard a lot of jokes about parents suspending their kids and kids not showing up for school on day 2. And so parents are going to need a break as well. Pet walking, right? Again, business people at home are apologizing because their dogs are barking in the background during meetings. I would position it like that. Hey, I know you're home and you're on WebEx and Zooms all day long. I'm happy to come in and take your dog for a walk for you to give you that nice peaceful quietness in your home while you're doing those meetings. Grocery store runs. I like the check-ins. I wish this was a business all in and of itself, just checking in on people and being that entity that's a kind hand and a kind word in this time of need, because other people are too busy. And then number 8 is really more of a joke, just to kind of play into the environment. Hopefully none of us have to get into a scavenger mentality, but scavenger services, right? Finding that $1 million roll of TP for others could be a service, right? So this is how you're sort of thinking, right? Like, what has this environment done to us? What could I be doing that's not being provided in a mass network capability? And start figuring out with your friends and your neighbors and your local community if these are services that you could be providing. And then I have a bunch of broader ideas. This is something Andrew and I were talking about when we were talking, right? Like, if Uber and Lyft are going to continue to move people around, then in this environment, I think the driver and the passenger are going to want a barrier between the both of them to keep them both protected. And so how do we develop that, right? And there's this like hacker's way of doing it over here, which is like a sheet and some metal bars. And in my head, I was like, ooh, we could do some like molding. We can have like a plastics company make it. It'll be clear. It'll be all fancy. And I was like, wait a minute, like those take people and people can't go to work. So how am I going to do this? So the broader ideas are going to be a little bit more interesting because they actually require people. But it doesn't mean that they're not available. When you think about companies like GM are starting to kind of think how they might be able to supply medical equipment with their current infrastructure in order to help through the environment. So big companies and small companies should be thinking about how to use their current processes in order to offer new services that help curtail the virus. So again, air travel, hotel stays, just think about cleaning, providing things that help make people feel like they're sanitized is going to be helpful. And then anything on the virtual side from a service delivery standpoint, anything that has to do with automations, I think are all really, really great ideas right now to go at companies who don't have these things in place. People calling the store to figure out if they're even open. That's someone on the phone versus putting up a process automation that answers those types of questions, I think is an opportunity as well. So going through all of this, what I'm trying to sort of get through is think differently about what's going on. We are in a pullback. Adjust the way that you do business, adjust the way that you address your markets. Prepare yourself for what eventually is growth, right? And what I've done here again is I've pulled up that first slide and chart that shows the pullbacks and the amount of months that the pullbacks occur. And as you can see, in every single one of them, there's a multiplier effect of growth that follows the pullback. And this is systematic. This is why our muscle is so strong in this area, I think, as people, is that we're very, very accustomed to the pullback. We're shocked by it. But at the end of the day, there's a magnitude of growth that follows a pullback. And if you're being very caring and empathetic and you're approaching your customers and your business and your marketplace in a way that is caring and empathetic and is not just trying to pull money out of them to buy your product or service, when the pullback goes away and the growth starts, you're going to end up looking like a partner and not someone who is just trying to be an evil, opportunistic person. And that's what you want to avoid. So this slide is also, and these two charts are also to give you some reassurance that it's going to change back. And you just have to give this pullback its time. Some of them are as low as just 3 months, right? And if you look at 3 months, so 90, so a little bit of one, we had 120 months of growth after that point. I'm okay with 3 months of pullback for 120 months of growth, right? So don't fret the environment that we're in right now. Just figure out how to work with it, work through it, take advantage of it, continue to move your business through it. And then ultimately, if you do that, your consumer base at the end of the day is going to feel very, very comfortable with the way that you handle them in this environment. And so the hustle is just more real now than it's ever been. You just putting the work into your business is just a requirement. It's just things that you weren't planning on, you now have to do. So keep a straight head, You know, Andrew and Monica, you, your family, your friends, and your community absolutely demand that you guys keep a straight head. There's more opportunity now than ever. It just looks different. And be caring over selling, right? Care more, sell less, but be there to solve their problem when it surfaces. And if you can do that in a gentle way, I think that once the recovery is done, you're going to be deemed as a partner, and people will be more dedicated to opening up their buying budgets and their dollars to you. And that's really about it. That's just to sort of set the conversation tone, how I'm thinking. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, and I'm happy to take as many as we need to. This is an open dialogue. Any questions safe. And the three of us here will try to offer more insight. And I'm happy to talk about tactics or anything else like that if you want. So I'm wide open.
Ben, wow. Thank you so, so much. I already jotted down like a bunch of notes for myself. And, it's so timely because, especially in the States, for me, I have some customers in Asia, so I've been kind of monitoring the wave a little bit earlier. And I had friends who were like, Monica, you're being paranoid. And like, now I feel like the shockwave is starting here, but you're absolutely right. I think to see where things are going. And I took down specific phrases that I thought was really great to recap. Think differently, adjust the course, prepare yourself. And I think there's something powerful about the word choices we use. That think, adjust, prepare. It's something that we all probably do as business owners, leaders, everyone who's tuning in, as well as those who's going to watch in the future. And I think it's all about how you let that sink in and then what action you take. And I love your point about the caring. Wait on the selling. It will come as long as you actually are already offering core value. And are you solving a problem that is in the market? Because that should always be the core element of why you should be doing a business. And if you started business for the wrong reason, I'm sorry, this might be the time you might be debunked on that. So thank you for that honest insight. So,
what do you want this title to be of this talk? And I sort of, as we were talking, sort of like, I had a harebrained idea coming through my head, and I was like, Andrew, I was thinking about calling it Side Hustling the Coronavirus. And he's like, that's a great title. I'm like, I'm afraid of that title because it could mean so many different things to so many different people. And so I stuck with it because it's very catchy. And I've been thinking about it ever since. I'm like, oh my gosh, someone's going to yell at me for trying to take advantage of what's going on in the world. And that's so not what I'm up to.